What is church? No, really, what is it? Anybody? Mara, yes. Church is where you talk and the minister. Is that right? Talks, and the minister talks. Okay. Anyone else? What's church, Jim? Gathering. Anyone else? Peace. Theo? No. Okay. Anyone? Meaning making. Any connection. Community. Anyone online? Growth. Practice. Wow, y'all are good at this. Listening. Emma? Authenticity. Love. Ritual. Is there anyone online? Fellowship. Wow, I'm impressed. This morning's topic is disrupt church, but if we don't know what church is, how can we disrupt it? Let's take a step further back. You might be thinking, okay, why would we want to disrupt church in the first place? Let me tell you a story. I used to belong to a beloved Unitarian Universalist congregation. It was located in a large city, and when I walked into this church at age 22, I was looking for a community, a way to make friends, to live my values, a place to go on Sunday morning in a new city where I didn't know anyone, to hear a good word. And I got that. I made friends I'm still in touch with. I was challenged on more than one occasion by a sermon. But there was more to that. It was 2007 when I walked in. It was the beginning of the Great Recession. I didn't have health insurance, and I was unemployed for a while I was there. The Iraq War was still happening. The next year, people voted in California on whether or not same-sex marriage could be legalized, and they voted no, something that destroyed me at the time. The country then would elect its first black president. The world felt hard to understand, but it also felt full of hope for the future. Church was where I could go to know these things were real and were happening, and know that when things happened in the world that weren't okay, we would talk about it. It was a place when I would go when I was sad or mad or happy and celebrating, and know that I was not alone. It's a place where I was valued, held as part of a community that was so often different from me. Often I was the youngest in the room by over 20 years. But the people there understood me as part of them, which isn't to say that they never disappointed me, because they very much did. But it was mine, and more importantly, I belonged to it. It etched in my heart during those 4 years when I was a member there, this deep sense of faith in Unitarian Universalism, and a deep connection to a place and people, not all of whom I was friends with or even liked. Is that what church is? A place of belonging, of hearing truths, of love? This is a really important question, and I want you to hold on to it as we move through this message. So, Dave Zarega, right there, he's raising his hand. If you're online, he's back there. One of our congregation's co-presidents and I attended a workshop together, and it was called Disrupt Church Fascism Edition. And it was about how the old models of how we do church aren't working. And you know this. We know this here at First Parish in Malden. Do you know how we know this? When I look at this space, and I look at you, I realize that we have done something amazing here. We have taken this reverent space with stained glass windows full of Jesus and parables, with crosses and Gothic architecture, and we have turned it into our own. Like the book in the Time for All Ages, we have left what doesn't work written over with our new words and ideas. And the power of that is not to be underestimated. Yes, we have this church building, but we also have these spaces for kids. Did you know there used to be pews all along the sides here? And in the back? And in the front? There used to be a lot more pews, which is a lot because there's already a lot of pews in here. We have video screens and cameras to bring in those who are online. Wave at those online. Hi, online people. We have a drum set and a band and a gong. We've had services where we talk about Rosh Hashanah, and we've had a Purim spiel, and they've been hosted by our Jewish community members. We had a former tech host who was Muslim and led a service on Eid. We've had services on Nowruz. We've had too many pagan holidays to count. Because there are there's not too many. There's not too many holidays. Don't say that. We've done speed friending in this space. We've thrown balls at the holiday octopus, which maybe we'll do again. We've napped during a service, and dozens of other things that people don't think of when they think of church. And through it all, we've still maintained the things that make us a community and that can hold us when things are hard. One of my favorite Unitarian ministers said in his famous sermon, The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity, in 1841, we have to hold on to what is central to who we are, the values of our faith, the nature of people. That is what's permanent. But let go of what is transient, things that don't stay forever, the doctrine, the dogma, the hierarchy, and the structure. I'm paraphrasing, but. Oops, sorry. All right, so let's go back to talking about churches in general and what's not working with them, even though maybe we know what is. According to Pew Research, about 40 people attend worship services either online or in person once a month. But I'm sure it won't surprise you to know that church attendance is going down, especially for the kind of people that go to UU Church, right? If you've ever been to a party and started talking about going to church and had people look at you funny, you know exactly what I mean. Has anybody had this experience? Yeah, quite a few people. I once told a friend of mine that I was probably the most religious person that she knew, and she looked at me with horror in her face. And I was like, I'm a minister. She could not process these things. We aren't what people think about when they think about who's religious. In these ways, we are already disrupting church, writing our story. But we are the kind of people who need church, who need community, who need what we have to offer right now, a place to live our values in fellowship, to listen. We, with other people who do believe that each person has inherent worth and dignity, who recognize that we are interdependent, and who want to work to build diverse, multicultural, beloved communities, even when it's hard. But can we live into that? How do we write our own story? So, in this workshop, they talked about 3 models of church. Now, a model is different from a mission. The easiest way to think about these models is to think about how the individual interacts with the church, right? The first one is one that was dominant for most of history. It's maybe one you might have grown up in. It mirrors the world that churches came out of. It's called the subject model. The subject model is what it sounds like. You're the subject of the church. The church is a kingdom. The minister or clergy are the royalty, the king, and you do what they tell you to do. You have a duty to the church. You don't really have a say in what happens. An example might be you go to a church board meeting, everybody's talking about their ideas and what they want to do, and then the clergy person walks in and makes the decision. The most important person in the subject model is the leader. Has anybody been to a church like this? A few people, yeah. The second kind of church model is called the consumer model, and it's also exactly what it sounds like. We've been trained in this consumerist society to treat everything like a product, a service that meets individual needs. And it's kind of a swing to all the way the other direction from the subject model. A lot of UU churches went this way, and for good reason, because a lot of our members come from the subject model churches. In the consumer model, you treat church like something you buy, a product, so that if you're paying for something, you get to demand what you want. An example of the consumer model would be people show up at a board meeting, and the conversation is about how each board member can get what they need and get what they want out of the church. The most important person in the consumer model is the individual. Has anybody been to a church like this? Yeah. And now the final model is the citizen model. In the citizen model, we work to create something together. We participate in the life of the church, we work with everyone who is a part of it, and we have a purpose together. In a citizen model, we really live into our values of interdependence. We don't accept everything that happens as the will of God, but we don't pick up and leave if things don't go our way either. It's a back and forth, a relationship building. We go to a board meeting and people are trying to figure out what's best for the church as a whole rather than each individual member of the board. There is no most important person in this model of church. Has anybody been to a church like this? A few people, yeah. I think this church is like this, so you're here, so you get to raise your hand. Maybe I'm biased, that's fair, I don't know. But really, I think we should be proud, because we've moved through the other models at different times in the life of this church, which has been around since 1648, so we've gone through them all. And honestly, there are ways we are still like each model of church, and frankly, there are benefits to each model of church and each way of interacting. Nobody should go to a church and do exactly what the minister tells them to do, or should go to a church that doesn't work for them. But as we move into this moment and try to meet this moment, we are most served by living into our values if we look at church as a citizen model of church. People who gather together, take risks for justice, embrace difference, and give back. That's our mission statement, by the way. So to be a church of citizens is to disrupt church. Reverend Peggy Clark and the Community Church of New York thinks about these really interesting ways to disrupt some of these models and move us towards a citizen model and rethink church. One of the things they do that I love is that they have decided that membership in the church is not the most important thing. They serve a community that they are a part of. They took a map, this is a church in Manhattan, and they took a circle of that church, and they said, everyone in this circle, they're a part of our church. Not because we force them to be, but we treat them as if they are part of our church. An example that I love is that they currently rent space for their worship services, and they weren't able to rent this service on Christmas Eve. So instead of canceling, they had their Christmas Eve service outside their office building where they held space. People came and the choir sang, and people walked by and they stopped and listened. People across the street opened their windows to hear the music. And they had a Christmas Eve service that touched the community beyond their doors. Now, this idea of circling a place and saying we serve all of those people might not work for us, but here are some fun facts. Did you know that First Parish in Malden has members from 17 different cities and towns? Did you know that 25% of our members identify as trans or non-binary? 25, that's wild. That is not just queer people, that's trans and non-binary people. Unbelievable to me. Did you know that there are churches that are 3 times our size that have way fewer children? Oh, apparently lots of people did know this. It was like, yep, yep. So it makes me wonder, what are our circles? Can we serve all of these towns and cities, especially the ones that don't have a UU church, like Somerville and Everett and Saugus? Are we really First Parish in Malden when we have people from 17 different cities and towns? Is our circle all of the trans and non-binary people in Boston? That's a lot of people, but is it? Do we find ways to support all families, all over, people with kids? This congregation also does something that I think is really cool called the Ministry of Yes, where they basically say yes to anything. Now, as a staff member, before I start this, I must say that this isn't something that, it's not the same as me or the staff saying yes to doing anything, right? We can't do everything for you. But if someone asks to hold a program or do something, the staff and leadership say, yes, how can we support you? Some examples that they had youth in the wider community that weren't part of their church, and they wanted to do an art zine. And the church was like, okay, how can we help you? They had somebody who wanted to do a church retreat, and the minister thought to herself, this is a terrible idea and not going to work. But instead of saying that to her, to this person, she responded in an email, yes, how can we support you? And the retreat was great. We're also thinking about doing one here, so get in touch if you're interested. The ministry of yes helps us not to think about what we think is best for the church or most meets our needs, but what we can accomplish together, because other people have different ideas. I don't know what's best just because I'm the minister. And here's a really important thing. Okay. Sometimes I listen to business podcasts, which I am somewhat embarrassed to admit. But a lot of the lessons are applicable to church. Adam Grant talks about something that I think is vitally important when we talk about ministry of yes and these circles and who we serve. And that is that failure is necessary, right? If we don't do things that fail, how are we going to figure out what works? All of that is to say that if you want to do something at this church and you come to me, I will probably say yes. Some programs that we've said yes to recently are a Taizé service that's going to start in November. That's like an evening kind of Vesper-style service. The people who want to run this don't come to Sunday morning church. But we said yes. We also said yes to a Magic the Gathering group. Two completely different things, but they serve needs not just the people in our church, but those who surround us. Scholar Timothy Snyder writes in his book on tyranny, which many of us read this summer as part of the church book group, that among other ways, some of the ways to defeat tyranny involved connecting in person, making eye contact and small talk, practicing being together, making friends to march with, and contributing to good causes. We don't have time for stuff that takes away of the goals of our community. Those goals might be moving slowly. We don't have time for the things that take away from the values of Unitarian Universalism. Not right now. This work we do together is vitally important, not just for us, but to those who surround us, use our space, and look to us in the community. So let us continue this work of disrupting church together. May it be so. Let us say together, Amen. Amen.